Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for an overview of the upcoming IEG webinar, Strategic Servicing, How to Renew and Upsell Current Partners. I'm William Chips, Senior Editor with IEG Sponsorship Report. Now, in this webinar, I'm going to discuss an important part of the sponsor solicitation process that takes place after the contract is signed. Now, how you work with your sponsor partners in terms of servicing the relationship really is vitally important, as your goal should be to build long-term relationships, and it's the servicing element that will ultimately get you to the renewal stage. Now, I really can't stress enough the importance of sponsor servicing. Now, we here at IEG always tell properties that really the profit in sponsorship is in renewals. Now, you definitely don't want to be in a constant search and replace mode when it comes to sponsors, which obviously can severely drain your resources. So that's why this topic is so crucial and so very, very important. So in this webinar, I'm going to discuss three primary aspects of sponsor servicing. So those areas are producing fulfillment reports, hosting sponsor summits, and educating your audience about the importance of sponsors and sponsorship. So let's begin by taking a look at fulfillment reports and why the documents are so very, very important. Now, frankly, your corporate partners say they are. Now, truth be told, this is really the only reason you need for creating post-event fulfillment reports. They really do go a very long way in keeping your sponsors happy. Now, and even if that is the most important reason to produce reports, there are certainly other reasons as well. Now, fulfillment reports put down in black and white the specifics of the benefits that your sponsor received. Now, it creates a record so that there can be no dispute later on. Now, a sponsor can't be vague about your under-delivery as a negotiating tactic. Now, it really allows you to say, hey, let's take a look at exactly what you received as part of this relationship or arrangement. Now, as we all know, very rarely is your sponsorship contact the one and only decision maker at their company. Now, it usually requires a great deal of work to gain internal buy-in and approval for a sponsorship, even at relatively small companies. So there really needs to be education through the halls and walls of your sponsor company on exactly why they are spending marketing dollars to align with your property. And a properly presented fulfillment report also serves as a quasi-proposal for renewing a sponsorship. Now, sellers can use this document to say, hey, let's build on the successes of this year's event and, let's create ways to improve the results for next time around. So they really do go a very long way in setting the stage for renewal and those renewal discussions. Now, as many of you know, IEG conducts an annual study in conjunction with the folks at Performance Research that surveys sponsor decision makers. Now, one of the questions that we ask sponsors is, what is the most valuable service that a property provides to you as a sponsor? Now, we're not talking benefits here. We're not talking about signage, tickets, hospitality, and that kind of thing, but the actual services that support the sponsorship. So as you can see here, fulfillment reports are tied with audience research on attitude as the most important services, with 50% of survey respondents scoring post-event reports a 9 or a 10 on a 10-point scale in terms of how valuable they were. So that's obviously more important to them than providing assistance measuring ROI, which we all certainly know how important that is, as well as other services. So now I'd like to switch gears a little bit and go over some best practices in compiling information for post-event fulfillment reports. And then I'll discuss what type of information to include, as well as the format that they should take. Now, first off, producing fulfillment reports really should be part of somebody's job description. That's really the essential point here. Now, who that person is really going to depend on a few variables, and there's really no set way of who is in charge of this. Now, really, most importantly, a property size and the amount of sponsorship activity that you're doing will help you understand who is responsible for that. So let's say you're with a national or an international property, or let's say that you have a multi-million-dollar sponsorship budget or sponsorship revenue, which hopefully all of you do. You can certainly justify having a full-time staff position dedicated to producing post-event fulfillment reports. Now, generally speaking, responsibility for producing reports really should fall to the staff person or to the people responsible for servicing sponsors. Now, at smaller organizations, that's likely to be the same person who sold the deal. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who it is. It just matters that it's on somebody's plate. Now, another consideration when talking about staffing, many times there are other areas within your organization that you will be relying on to produce some of the information needed for your fulfillment reports. So this could be everyone from ticket sales, it could be operations, finance people, public relations, information technology, etc. So you really need to think of all the different departments within your company that touches sponsorship in some way, shape, or form. So the takeaway here is that you really need to be sure that these people really understand the importance of tracking that information and ultimately delivering it to you in a timely manner. Our second best practice is to make it an ongoing process. Fulfillment reports are probably the last thing you want to think about when you're in the midst of planning your events and working with sponsors and all of their activation programs and everything else that you're tasked to do. But you really do need to start working on it and really compiling information before the event, during the event, and after the event. You're going to wind up with a lot of lost information if you wait until after your event is over. So you really do have to start compiling this information as soon as you possibly can. I think the second point here really backs that up. You really need to be gathering all of this information you will need continuously throughout the sponsorship. So what you should do at the very beginning of the relationship is look at all the deliverables you have promised to a sponsor and try to make a list of how and when you will be able to document each one. Now, sure, many of them will happen at the event or will have to wait until the event is over. But others, such as, I'll say, tracking of pre-event advertising or media coverage, really should be collected as it happens. Otherwise, you've lost that window of opportunity. Now, compiling information, taking pictures of sponsors, on-site exposure, and other tasks can oftentimes be assigned to interns or, say, trusted volunteers. Much of this work is very nitty-gritty, but it definitely needs to be done, so interns might be able to help you out there. And the last point here for your own sanity, properties with multiple events really should try to develop a system that makes sure all of the information is reported in a uniform way so that you can ensure that you are getting what you need as well as in the format that you need from each of your events, chapters, or field offices. To learn more about renewing and upselling your current partners, please join me for IEG's Strategic Servicing webinar. I hope to see you there.